Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
Welcome to Blog Talk Radio. I am the Mad Scientist of Sports, Nick Piccarelli, and you have now entered the Mad Scientist Sports Lab, where the beacons are lit, the experiments are on the chalkboard, and the test subjects, they come rolling in. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a great show for you this evening. Forgive me if I'm a little off, not feeling too great, a little bit under the weather, but I promise you I'm going to give you the best show I can possibly can. Tonight we have a great show. We have the godfather of football facts from Russell Baxter joining us. We have New York Giants defensive lineman, rookie, Carlos Taylor joining us. At 11 o'clock we have Chris Stinkins, the mayor from War Room Sports, joining us. And then at 11:30, a very special guest, we have pro wrestler Josh Alexander joining us about his decision to retire from professional wrestling due to a neck injury that he suffered, and it's going to be a very poignant story. But we're not going to waste any time, and of course, when my first guest comes on, he obviously has to get his due respect and the proper introduction that he so richly deserves. He is known as the godfather of professional football facts. He is one of the preeminent writers for Bleacher Report, NFL Spin Zone, his own amazing blog, Pro Football Guru, Cold Hard Football Facts. The list just keeps going on and on. Oh, yeah, how could you forget? The guy was on ESPN. The guy was on Yahoo. Basically, I bow to the master like I always do. Without further ado, the godfather himself, Russell Baxter. Hey, Bax, how you doing tonight?
Well, hello, Nick. It's been a while. How you been?
I'm doing very well. And joining us tonight, Russ, is a special guest co-host that I have for this evening. He is, yes, my apprentice, Andrew Blueclaw, who you know very well from prior shows, was not able to join us tonight. Something came up. So I went out and I had to find another apprentice for this evening. And what better person than Cleveland's favorite son, the man who's in charge of the Inscriber digital magazine, and a very good friend of mine, and on a whim, he decided to be the apprentice for this evening. I don't know what he got himself into, but hopefully for the next 2 hours he gets to learn from the master himself, me being the mad scientist, as well as the godfather of professional football. Ladies and gentlemen, Robert.
Hey, how's it going? I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me on, Nick.
Now, I'm a little concerned already. If this is the apprentice, are you going to fire him after a couple hours?
Ouch.
Russ, if you don't know how many times I've been fired from my own radio show, it would be expected. But anyway, let's get things
Well, I mean,
off.
here's the thing. You say the word apprentice, and what's the first thing that comes into your mind?
You're fired.
You're fired. So?
Exactly. And that's what's going to happen in 2016 if a certain billionaire decides to get elected. So, but we're not going to go there.
Yeah, let's hope not, man.
Anyway.
Yes, I think we can trump that story. Okay.
Oh,
yes.
Good one.
Yes, we can. So, without further ado, Russ, obviously the big thing that's been in the news this week is none other than Dez Bryant. The threats have already been out there that he's going to sit out possibly the first game of the year. He may not sign his franchise tag. Jerry Jones has been adamant, stating that he will sign him to a contract not to the numbers that Dez thinks that he's going to get. We did see DeMarco Murray leave earlier this year, obviously, to division rival Philadelphia. Do you think there is cause to be concerned in Dallas with regards to what's becoming now the Dez Bryant saga?
Not really, not yet. I think what's happening here, though, is As we get closer to the July 15th deadline of being able to sign your franchise player to a long-term deal, I think my guess is that Des Bryant and his camp are probably getting a little nervous because the deal hasn't been done yet. I'm pretty certain that they will come to a long-term deal, and the reason I'm that certain is one of the reasons they don't have DeMarco Murray anymore is they had to make a decision when it was all said and done on who to franchise. Now, they made the right move in franchising Des, at least in my opinion, and I think they thought they could still hang on to DeMarco Murray, and I think they almost did, but then, you got the obligatory, so you love to call me the Godfather. I'm sure DeMarco Murray got the obligatory offer that he couldn't refuse. So, the Cowboys are making do with what they have there, but I'm pretty confident this is going to get done. And it behooves both parties to get this done. Des Bryant, especially the last 3 years, I don't have to tell you the numbers he has put up. And, I think he is, you remember a couple of years ago there was almost this misnomer, especially that, that tirade, well, they called it a tirade, where everybody thought that Des Bryant was complaining on the sidelines when they were playing the Lions and Calvin Johnson, and all of a sudden somebody had the brilliant idea of actually listening to what Des Bryant said instead of just assuming, millions of lip readers across the country, and that wasn't the case. And I think he has really come on as a player and a pro, and, with Jason Witten starting to, head down the stretch, he's played 12 years now, 10-time Pro Bowler. They have some young receivers, obviously, in Terrence Williams and Cole Beasley. But Des Bryant has, put himself as, one of the best receivers in the entire league. And, he's just starting to hit his prime. And like I said, I think he'll get this done.
Now, the other major thing that's happening in pro football, obviously, is Demaryius Thomas. Probably most likely in the same boat. Obviously, he's not thrilled that he's been franchised, and, God forbid someone wants to sign for a guaranteed $12.8 million or whatever it may be. But he's talking about it as a sign of disrespect. Now, I tend to totally disagree with that, obviously, because they franchise you because they want to sign you to a long-term deal, and they're guaranteeing you money in the bank. Do you think, pretty much it's the same thing as Des Bryant goes, do you think there's cause to be concerned in Denver, or do you think the same thing, there's going to be, it's the obligatory, he said type of deal, and a contract will be signed?
Listen, you go back and look at, we were just talking about Des Bryant and his numbers of the last 3 years. Go back and look at Demaryius Thomas numbers over the same exact span of 3 years. What a coincidence since Peyton Manning got there. They're off the charts. And, again, I think this is antsiness on the part. But, I mean, I think what happens here, to be honest, I'm not breaking any news here. The franchise tag needs to be renamed. It's not really you're not really the franchise player. They should call it the procrastination tag. And what it does is just buys you time to sign your better players to a long-term deal. And it's not even so much your better players, to be honest with you. I mean, you know what position has been franchised less than any other since there's been a franchise tag? It's quarterbacks. It's an economic tag is what it is. So Demaryius Thomas, again, you think about their offseason. Was it going to be Demaryius Thomas, or are they going to possibly franchise Julius Thomas? Well, they didn't. They franchised Demaryius. Julius walked, went to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Broncos didn't make an overly big effort to keep him. But, I mean, both Demaryius and Emmanuel Sanders over 100 catches last year. But you know how Peyton Manning is. He likes things a certain way. He's coming off the quad injury from late last year. But Demaryius Thomas is, again, in that upper echelon of receivers. And, if you don't get a long-term deal done, it doesn't mean you're not playing this year. I mean, you still sign your tender and all that. It's just that after July 15th, you can't do it. Okay? Now, I'm not foolish to believe that if Thomas or Bryant don't sign their deals, Nick, that the Cowboys Cowboys and Broncos respectively would franchise him a second straight year. You just can't do that anymore. I mean, it would cost them. It absolutely cost them through the roof, and you won't see that. But again, I think the Broncos will probably get this done as well, and maybe it's just a race between the two of them, the two receivers, to see what gets done here. But I understand the frustration of the player, because again, it's almost like a misnomer of what the franchise tag is. Then again, especially wide receivers, right up there with the highest paid players in the league, that 1-year tender isn't anything to sneeze at.
No, not at all. Absolutely not. And what I find interesting, though, Bax, is that players seem to think that if you're slapped with the franchise tag, that you're pretty much stuck. But I believe there have been a couple of times in the past, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I know that you normally do, because sometimes I do, my facts aren't as great as yours. But there have been times where a franchise player does go out and sign a tender, and which it's a power play by the opposing squad because they don't want to give up the round picks, but they want to force another team's hand. Or am I thinking about the transition tag?
Well, listen, the transition tag is almost silly. I mean, you go back a number of years when the the Minnesota Vikings put the franchise. Seattle Seahawks put the franchise tag or transition tag on Steve Hutchinson, and completely baffled it. You remember the Minnesota Vikings signed him with what they called a poison pill contract.
Yeah, I remember that.
Made it absolutely impossible, and it all had to do with the way Walter Jones's contract was structured. So they lost Steve Hutchinson, who was one of the best guards in the league for a long time. So you do see it every once in a while. You saw with the Miami Dolphins this year with Charles Clay, and you saw Buffalo sign him to a big-time offer sheet. The Dolphins weren't going to sign him, match that. But, I think the Dolphins did okay, Nick. They wound up getting Jordan Cameron from the Cleveland Browns. Not a bad pickup. Not a bad pickup at all to replace him. But you're right, it has happened. Now, what also you can do is what people forget is you can orchestrate a deal with a team where you don't have to give up those 2 first-round draft choices. It has happened in the past a long time ago, but what teams do now with these franchise players, if you're going to have a player move, what you do is you get him to agree to sign the tender, and once he signs the tender, you can then trade him for whatever you want to trade him for. See, that's the thing. You can't trade a player that's not under contract, okay? But if you say, it happened with Aeneas Williams and the Cardinals and the Rams, okay? If you can get that, it's happened in the past with restricted free agents. Remember, that's how Wes Welker wound up in New England, okay? They signed him. They were going to sign him to a huge offer sheet. They knew Miami would never match it. They, in turn, didn't want to necessarily pay all that money, so they got, the Dolphins to, Welker to agree to his tender, and they dealt him instead of losing him via free agency. So there's a lot of ways to go about it. But, I understand the frustration of the franchise tags because players, I think, after they play for 5 years, especially a first-round pick, that first-round pick wants to go out and test and see, hey, maybe somebody wants to give me $100 million. We have now seen positions other than quarterbacks. As you know, we saw, Albert Haynesworth signed to a $100 million deal. We see the big contracts for other players as well at different positions other than quarterback. So it's like I said, it's almost a misnomer that the name franchise tag is kind of odd. I mean, it's funny. Teams, the New England Patriots, the thing they like to do is they like to franchise their kickers to make sure they don't go anywhere, and they did that with Stephen Gostkowski, and I believe he's the only franchise player this offseason to actually sign his tender.
I know it's amazing that the franchise tag has become a complete misnomer, And, some days, people will learn, just because you get tagged as a franchise player doesn't mean that there's the sign of disrespect or the stigma.
No, not at all.
Yeah, so one day that'll happen. Rob, do you have any questions?
Well, yeah, I'll be honest with you. What they need to really do is redo the entire system, okay? We have seen in recent years, and I don't have to remind you this, we saw Terrell Suggs say, I should be a defensive end, not an outside linebacker. He would make more money, okay? We've seen Jimmy Graham say, I'm a wide receiver, not a tight end.
Excellent point.
Okay?
I was just about to get on that myself, actually.
Yeah, exactly. So, they need to redo the entire I mean, we've had the system for more than 20 years. We've had free agency for a little over 20 years. It's not like baseball where free agency has been around like 40 years. So, they need to redo the system as far as I'm concerned and make it just a lot more understandable. Listen, we now have basically a rookie salary cap or a slot system for, that's why we don't have holdouts anymore. So we now are in the point where the franchise players are more holdouts than the rookies.
I agree. And what kills me is that, if I may jump in, is that you brought up about Jordan Cameron leaving my Browns for the Dolphins. Personally, I feel like the Dolphins are going to have a case of buyer's remorse because Nick knows how I feel about Jordan Cameron. I refer to him as China Doll Cameron due to his history of injuries and, unfortunately, concussions. That's very serious. But the point is this, is that, yes, the Dolphins and Bills basically played a game of chicken with Charles Clay. And that Clay is a decent tight end, but he ain't worth that much money. And the fact the Bills overpaid for him, then which in turn the Dolphins decided to give $7.5 million to a tight end who's one hit away from basically eating out of a cup the rest of his life. I don't wish that on nobody, but still, that's just like, Cameron, when healthy, he is a deadly tight end, but that's the problem. I mean, I do feel, though, and I actually wrote a column on the Inscriber recently about the top tight ends, that he's the third best tight end for fantasy because he's going to be playing with a much better offense. He's going to be playing with an up-and-coming quarterback, Ryan Tannehill. You got Devontae Parker, Greg Jennings, and I think that he just walked into a good situation, but it's like that's very, very risky, though. I mean, personally, I agree with you. Like, you brought up the point about Jimmy Graham. Like, he could have made more money as a wide receiver than as a tight end, which ultimately was the reason why the Saints traded him to the Seahawks, because of that extra money, that difference.
Oh, no doubt about it. I mean, the Saints. I mean, let's not forget what the Saints did this year. The Saints pulled the Miami Marlins and kind of cleaned house.
Yeah, they did.
They wanted to change their style on offense. You just talked about the Dolphins. You didn't mention Kenny Stills. Guess where he came from? A trade from the New Orleans Saints. The Kansas City Chiefs got Ben Grubbs via a trade from the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah.
So the Saints were very, very busy this year doing a lot of things, and the thing they need to do most is tighten up that defense. But to me, Jordan Cameron, if he can stay healthy, if he can stay away avoid the concussion problems, and he had a shoulder injury last year as well. He could be very, very valuable, especially when you consider, and you mentioned Devontae Parker. Devontae Parker's probably going to be out until the very start of the season. They discovered a foot injury. So I mean that sets him back a little, but it might be an advantage to Cameron, who again, he's a Pro Bowler not too long ago in this team. But on a lighter note, I know you remember this, but Jordan Cameron got dinged last year in the season opener.
Yes, he did. He got dinged
at Heinz Field.
Yep.
And I was, on a personal note, so disappointed because the following week the Browns played the Saints at Cleveland. And I was so looking forward all off season to a meeting between Jordan Cameron and Cameron Jordan.
Just for the names alone, yeah, I know, right? But yeah, and I remember that. And like I said, Jordan Cameron, when healthy, in my opinion, he is one of the top 5 tight ends in the game. I will gladly say that. But the problem is that he had one great year. Then he's got a couple of head injuries in between that. And you need to have more of a body of work of consistency before you can, pull something like what he did between the Browns and the Dolphins. Like, a lot of fans were, really upset the fact that he basically played one team against another, just had to go with the Dolphins, and yet I'll admit the Dolphins are a better team. But the thing, though, is about Cameron is that it's just that he just has such a sad injury history. That's just, if I'm a Dolphins fan, that's what I would be concerned about. Devontae Parker, from what I saw on the tape of him when I watched a couple games at Louisville, he could be a good playmaker for them. The Dolphins, I think they could. I could see them giving the Patriots a run for their money at least. In theory, depending on Tom Brady's suspension, of course, if that ever actually goes through. The world is ending if Roger Goodell will actually suspend the NFL's golden boy, right? Come on, I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, it's sitting there at 4 games now. It's possible if they, you see this New York Times report, that there's now another discrepancy with the report. But I still kind of hold to the fact that this was less about Tom Brady and PSI and ball pressure, and it was more about Tom Brady and the New England Patriots not being forthright with information. And
right.
even if they weren't hiding anything, they gave the impression that they were hiding something.
Right.
And I think that's the bothersome thing. So I won't be shocked if Tom Brady still misses maybe the first 2 games. But I also wouldn't be shocked if it's overturned altogether, although overturning it altogether might not exactly send the right message if you're Roger Goodell. But again, you got to be fair with the evidence. And maybe Tom Brady goes in there and he's a little more forthright and says, "Hey, I still think this whole thing could have been, Deflategate could have all been important or avoided if somebody had stepped up and said something shortly after the AFC Championship game." But I truly believe that there was a fear on the Patriots' part, and maybe Tom Brady's, that he might be suspended for the Super Bowl. Given the fact that the NFL takes as long as they do to resolve such matters, I don't think there was a chance in hell he'd be suspended for the Super Bowl.
Right. If they would have suspended Tom Brady for Super Bowl, number one, that would have you would have seen the biggest shift in Vegas odds making in history, number one. Number two, the backlash of a probable suspension of a player of Tom Brady's stature would have just been unbelievable. Now, again, and this is something that I've also stated on the show before, is that I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a Patriots fan, but I feel that part of this, I feel, is just a case of sour grapes, because, I look at the fact that the timing of it after the Super Bowl, I look at, what happened during the game, and I'm like, the guy who reported was from Indianapolis, and I just connect the dots there, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm not sure if this guy's just being sour, or it's just the fact that I find the timing of it rather strange, in my opinion. But when you read the report, you read the language of what it says it's probable or more than likely or they may have. Those are just subjective words. Those are not definitive. That's not the report itself saying that they did do it, that Tom Brady was aware that the Patriots did deflate the balls or manipulated the pressure or whatever. That just tells me that that's just more glorified speculation than fact, in my opinion.
Well, I think this has less to do with, I'm not sure I agree with the sour grapes. No, I don't think the NFL is going around spending players based on sour grapes from other organizations.
Right.
Well, let's keep something in mind here. The New England Patriots, let's forget Tom Brady for a second.
Okay.
The New England Patriots were fined $1 million and fined 2 draft choices. Okay. Let me ask you this: if a player gets a DUI and gets suspended for 4 games, what happens if he does it again?
It will be up to 8 games, I believe.
He would be a 2-time offender, correct?
Yeah, he'd be a 2-time offender, yes. That'd be correct.
So the New England Patriots, and we had Spygate in 2007, in which they were fined $500,000, I should say the coach was. The organization was fined $250,000. They were given, they lost their 2008 first-round draft choice. So let's keep something in mind here. And by the way, the New England Patriots also suspended 2 of their employees for being innocent. I don't think anybody in Indianapolis suspended the two ball boys.
And that's a very good point. That's a very good point.
There's a lot. Listen, something happened here. I'll quote Bill Polian, who said this a couple of months ago. If there was nothing deceptive going on, why was somebody in a bathroom for a minute and 40 seconds? So, again, I think this has more to do with, doctoring footballs has been going on forever, okay? Be it against the rules. I mean, it's like scuffing a baseball. You get caught, you're screwed, okay? You get thrown out of a game. You sandpaper in your hat, Vaseline in your on your cap. So I'm not sure exactly what happened here. No one knows, except maybe a couple people, what the truth is. But the fact that there was an attempt to maybe stifle the truth is why I think the Patriots received the fine that they did. So, and, again, what other people also forget is this isn't a court of law, okay? If the NFL opts to do something here. Now, Tom Brady goes into that office this week, as a matter of fact, June 23rd.
Right.
And, tells Roger Goodell, listen, this is the true story. Roger Goodell takes him at his word. There might not be a suspension. But the one person that we haven't heard from nearly enough, unfortunately, is Tom Brady, and I think that's why, as of now, he's under the gun as he is. So I think if he comes out and says something to Roger Goodell, the commissioner, I think this whole changes. But it's got to be him. Listen, there's a million lawyers working on this on Twitter. Just go on Twitter. If you need a lawyer or a private investigator, every one of them is on Twitter right now.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah. And that's one reason why I'm not on Twitter like a whole lot. Like, I'm on Twitter, but not all the time, because ignorance runs amok, and it's like on the loose. You get all the conspiracy theories, all the snarky wannabe know-it-alls, and all the quote-unquote experts and stuff. And I agree with you. The fact Tom Brady's silence is not helping him right now in this, in terms of public perception. But the thing, though, is that he was not found guilty of being directly involved. Again, like I said, I go back to the language of the Tom Wells report itself, is that
let me ask you this, though. So is he guilty of being indirectly involved?
He's not, in my opinion, he's not guilty of anything unless it's actually been proven for a fact. So I wouldn't say, to answer that question, I would say he's not guilty of not being involved.
Well, here's the other thing you have to keep in mind here. Okay, and I think this plays a very, very big hand. And I don't know if he's guilty. I'm not accusing him. I'm not. Nobody knows. But here's what I do know when it comes to the NFL. If you skip a drug test, you never tested positive, but it goes down as a fail.
Yeah, kind of like what happened with Josh Gordon recently here in Cleveland.
Well, God only knows what he did. So. All right, but what I'm saying is, if you do not attend your drug test, technically you didn't do anything wrong. You didn't test positive, but you did it, and it goes down as a fail.
But here's something that I take out of this, and you guys may call me nuts, but that's why they call me the mad scientist. But
Nick, I would call you nuts regardless of the ensuing conversation. So,
good point.
Which is 100% true. But I personally think that Brady's silence through this whole thing, to be very honest with you, has been nothing short of brilliant. And the reason why is this. He's going to have his audience on Tuesday at 9:30 in the morning in Commissioner Goodell's office, and he will say what needs to be said.
Mm-hmm.
Goodell right now could possibly, as Bax said, rescind the suspension fully or cut it to 2 games. Now, the Wells report did come out and say it's more than likely, and as, again, eloquently stated by Bax, the NFL is not a court of law. The NFL does not have subpoena power. The NFL does not have the power of the courts.
Right.
If after this conference Brady stays at 4 games, I really do feel that this will end up in the court system, and if it does, to me, it's just going to be another black eye for the NFL because it's almost like they're becoming the NCAA, the gang that can't shoot straight.
Right. No, I agree. You know what's ironic about what you just said, Nick? I agree with you. The smartest thing that Tom Brady has done is not said anything. But ironically, Tom Brady's silence is what created this issue in the first place.
Well, I guess he didn't want to be incriminating or anything like that.
My theory is, I sincerely believe this. I think, for me, if Tom Brady comes out after the allegation says, I deflated the balls, what's the big deal? Okay, so what? Okay, listen, the NFL is going to eventually deal with it, but they weren't going to deal with it Super Bowl week. Okay, I mean, listen, the NFL has Super Bowl week, free agency. The NFL draft. Why do you think all those things happen after all those things are over? Okay, I mean they're not going to have their star or any player involved in a major controversy when they're putting on 2 or 3 of their biggest events of the year. So that is certainly a factor in that as well. But again, I think the fear of maybe being suspended for the Super Bowl, and who knows. Okay, but I mean, I find it hard to believe. I mean, this thing has been going on, forever. Okay, In fact, I believe the shock of this 4-game suspension was so surprising to people. And you guys can chime in if you want and tell me how you felt when you heard it. Were you more surprised that he suspended 4 games, or more surprised because you thought it had just kind of disappeared?
Well, me personally, and we gotta wind this down. I was surprised that it took so long that he got suspended.
Right.
But again, I keep going back to the report, and I keep reading the report, and I keep saying to myself, this report kind of, sort of exonerates Brady slightly. So if he does say suspended, it's going to be 2 games at the max. I don't see the 4 games staying. That's just me. Bax, I'm sorry.
I agree with you. I think it's going to be knocked down to 2, but I don't think it'll be totally away unless he goes in there and has absolute positive proof and something a lot better than we called this guy the deflator because he was on a diet. Okay?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, listen. That's about as flimsy as it gets. So if there's nothing to hide here, can we just get to the bottom of this?
And pretty much end it. That's all.
Yes.
Back, as always, great having you on the show. Absolutely amazing. Why don't you let the good people tell them where they can find you on Twitter, and we'll go from there.
Can I let the bad people know, too?
Yeah, you can do that if you want.
Oh, okay. All right.
Warren, we are not involved in any way. Aiding and abetting. We are not involved.
Bax Football Guru is the Twitter handle. We're making a push to get to 40,000 followers by Super Bowl 50. Bleacher Report, NFL Spin Zone. You can catch me on a lot of radio shows across the country, NBC, CBS, ESPN, Fox. Having a blast, enjoying myself. And by the way, I'll throw this out there. Hey, but if you're interested in writing for us in NFL Spin Zone, drop me an email at russell@profootballguru.com, and I'll try to get you set up.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bax. Definitely going to have you on when the season starts rolling in about 82 days. So
82 days. That would be John Taylor, Raymond Berry, or John Stallworth. Take your pick.
I'll take Jason Witten. Thank you.
Jason Witten's in there too.
I'll talk to you soon, Bax.
All right, guys. Have a great night.
Hey, you have a good night.
You too.
And that was Russell Baxter, the Pro Football Guru, a.k.a. the Godfather of Professional Football Facts. Great guest as always. But we already have our second guest for this evening. And ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to have this player on our show tonight. Great story, was, an amazing football player at Southern Connecticut University, and was following his career his senior year, talking to him on Twitter, and a lot of people got behind him, and we were hoping and praying we may hear his name on draft night during the draft, It didn't happen, but as soon as the draft was over, his phone was ringing off the hook, and sure enough, he is now a member of the New York Football Giants. He just went through OTAs. He just went through his first mini camp. He's getting ready to go into training camp. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Southern Connecticut's favorite son, Carlif Taylor. Carlif, how you doing tonight?
Wow, brother. I mean, that's probably the best introduction I've probably ever even been a part of. I'm great, brother. How's everything? How you guys doing?
We're doing good, really, man. We're doing good. Got to give you props for making it through NFL training camp. That is not easy to do.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So, Carl, you're like one of those like Cinderella stories that a lot of people want to get behind and everything like that. Going into your junior and senior year, your name started popping up on a lot of draft boards and everything like that. And when we started talking to you. A bunch of us quote unquote draftniks were following your path to the draft and everything. When the call came from the New York Giants, what was how did you feel? I want to put it in like such an easy way. How did you feel, and did your spirits rise above?
I mean, the feeling to put in words is almost impossible. It's just kind of like, I'm really trying. Let me see. It's like surreal. Sometimes it feels real. Sometimes it doesn't. I mean, I literally dreamed about this moment specifically with the Giants numerous occasions, and I mean, it's just something where you wake up the next day and it's just like, Is this really just happened, or is this really going on? It's just like, man, it's the ultimate dream come true, and then you just got to realize that this is just step one and take full advantage of it. So after a day or two of shock, I was able to grasp everything and just went 100% forward.
Now, going back to your days at Southern Connecticut, what made you decide to play at such a small university at Southern Connecticut University? Because I remember you were saying at one time you received letters from Rutgers, Holy Cross, Temple, Wagner, Fordham, Stony Brook, and Lafayette, and you even got a letter from Princeton. So
yep.
Just want to know, take me through the steps on how you ended up at Southern Connecticut.
I mean, going through that process and not having much of the recruiting process for the college idea, not having, I mean, God bless the dead, my father was deceased at when I was 7, and my mother really doesn't watch sports, and I was just fairly new to football. Nobody around me knew at least the process to college and the whole situation of how to go about things. So when I was getting these letters and stuff, a lot of people were asking for the SATs and the ACTs, and I took the SATs 3 times, and the first 2 times they lost my scores. Third time with me taking it, it was hard for me to really give it my all and give it full effort and truly believe in myself and at that time realizing if I really wanted to continue playing this sport. And so the third time the SATs wasn't good enough for the majority of my D1 offers, so they offered me prep school and JUCOs and things of that nature. But I mean, a lot of my friends were in big D1 schools, and I kind of didn't know if my heart was into it. So I was telling them basically like, if it didn't count as college credits, I really didn't want to do it. And Southern Connecticut was a D2 school, and my grades were good enough to get in. And once when I went to the campus, I fell in love with it, and it's just been the story, and that's been the start of my story.
Now, describe your football experience at Southern Connecticut. Was it exactly what you expected it to be, being that it's a small Division II school? Not as many students as going to a metropolis like, say, a Notre Dame or University of Texas or anything like that. But it seemed like it was more of like a close-knit group of guys. I mean, you played with Jerome Cunningham, who's your teammate now on the New York Giants. You played with Ike. I can't even pronounce his name sometimes. Exactly, and he's on the Bills roster right now. So, what was it like, football experience-wise, at a small school like Southern Connecticut?
Playing at a small school is definitely a blessing in disguise outside of the political schemes and networking to get into the league. But I mean, it's a lot of humble guys and it's a lot of hard-working guys. And the Eagles, I would say, is definitely not is nowhere on the level. I guess you see somebody who has been ranked their whole life and been told they're going to make it and already projected before they even touch the field. So it's a lot more hard-working guys, and being that we're not on TV every week, it's more so of a family thing, and people just genuinely help each other. Not saying other big schools don't, but coming from a smaller school, it's a little tighter bond. And it was almost similar to like a bond you'll have in high school where everything was more family-oriented instead of business-oriented.
Now, you were all-conference 2 straight years, which is no small feat no matter what conference you play for. How did you feel when you found out when you were named to the all-conference team for the 2nd straight season after your senior year?
I mean, to any kind of award is a blessing. I mean, hard works come with it, but when I get things like that, believe it or not, it's kind of like I enjoy it for about a minute or so, and after that, it's kind of behind me. I appreciate it, but I know that I always want more for myself, so I aim on the next level. So if that was to happen, I'll probably be aiming for All-American next year or just a higher accolade or just a better season overall. It's always room for improvement in my eyes, so anytime a good thing or a good blessing like that comes, I'm always trying to just focus on something bigger and better next year.
Now,
I'm sorry if
I
may jump in. Let me ask you this: like, there's a lot of other players that have come from small schools, like Miles Austin, Tony Romo. There's like heck, even I'm trying to think of the guy's name. I don't even know why. The guy from the Giants, the one with the gap tooth. I don't know. Michael Strahan. Yeah. Like, was there any one of those players that inspired you to say that you could make it despite going to a small school that made you fight harder to, like, want to be on the NFL roster?
I mean, honestly, it's kind of just, in order to get somewhere, you got to understand, you got to be within you already. I mean, of course, other outside people can influence you, and you can have influences from different events. But one thing I learned through just talking to different people from the journey, whether it was from training for the combine and dudes in the league, everybody has a story. Whether it's an easy story, whether it's a hard story, everybody has their own path, and each path will be different, hands down. It's 100% chance everybody's path will be different. So things like that are also motivational, but at the same time, I believe just hard work, talent, and believing in yourself, anything can happen. And if you just go 100% of anything you do, and if it doesn't happen, then that's just God telling you that's not your course of life. And I mean, that's kind of what my thought was. I never looked at statistics saying that less than 1% make it. I never really kind of thought of the draft process. I just wanted to get in, and it would have been a blessing to get drafted. But I told myself wherever or however I get in, I'm just going to stick, and that's my word, and I'm sticking to it.
Now, let's put it like this. Okay, how did the signing with the New York Giants all happen? I mean, just take me through like when you first got the phone call all the way to the date that you put pen to paper.
Well, it was I wouldn't say it was rough after the draft, but it definitely was. I was in the mist. I was in the little mist, and my agent Ray, he was trying to keep my spirit up because I didn't know much about the process. So the day I saw it if you didn't get called after the draft, it kind of was pretty much done deal. But basically, after the draft, nothing happened. My agent was trying to work up a few contracts between the Giants, Colts, Eagles, and basically I was at home for a while, just trying to keep myself positive, like motivate, just enforcing good motivation within myself. And I happened to check an email, and it was from Chris Pettit, the same scout that found Victor Cruz and vouched for him, asking would I like to try out for the Giants. And we called up, we spoke, and he issued me a tryout. And thank God I didn't see it before then. Like I said, I rarely watch statistics or like look things up. But at that time, the Giants had an 89 roster spot. And I mean, if you know anything about football, it's a 90-man roster during camps and during off season. So, and it's 66 people trying out. So statistically speaking, you have a 6% chance out of trying out with those 66 people. But I went out there anyway. And I mean, me being away those couple of days after the draft, it put like a little chip on my shoulder, and it gave me some desire that I never had before. And I was in my room alone. And I remember I was talking to God. I made a life oath that if I ever get a chance, whether it's a trial or anything, I'll take full advantage of it. I mean, God is good. I mean, I was lucky enough to get that contract. And after the camp was ended, dude ran from me from the Rutgers Pro Day and was like, "We would like for you to be a Giant, take a shower. I'll be outside waiting for you so you can meet the general manager and we can negotiate a contract." And it's just like, I can remember, like when I'm speaking right now, it's just a memory in my head of going back to it. It's something you'll never forget.
Now, what qualities will you personally bring to the New York Giants, and what parts of your game do you feel that you still need to work on? Because it's always continuously evolving, you know, as your career is getting started, and you hopefully will be a very, very long and prosperous career, of course. But what is something that you can work on, and what do you bring to the table for the Giants?
I mean, your craft is your craft. If my body allowed it, I'll be working 100 years on my craft regardless of if it's considered perfection or not. I mean, it's something, if you truly believe in the art you do, regardless of profession, you just always practice because you always feel like you could get better, which is true. So, I mean, when it comes to working on things, I really want to work on everything. I mean, specifically pass rushing, because everything else, that would probably be like one of my toughest situations, being that I'm in the inside and you're getting double teamed or it's just limited space. I would definitely always want to improve my pass rush. But, I mean, overall, everything should be sharper, in my opinion, for myself. And what I could bring to the team is definitely just charisma and just that blue collar, that effort. It's just that hard work. I mean, when you're against these guys left to the left and right of you, the talent margin is short. Everybody there is talented. It's just who gives that extra mile, who's gonna always finish, who's gonna be there when nobody's there mentally, who's gonna pick up that other teammate. And that's something that was just always instilled upon me, that I just naturally bring out the best of other people.
Rob, do you have any more questions for Carlos?
I would just say, like, I'm very inspired to hearing another good story about a player from a small school, you know, making it to the NFL. Like here in Cleveland, we got Taylor Gabriel, who's from Abilene Christian, and Miles Austin, now for the Eagles, played for the Browns last year. But I was actually a big fan of his back in 2008. Fantasy football reasons, of course, but I just liked the type of person he was, how hardworking and professional he was, how he worked from basically getting dropped by like 3 different teams before finally signing on with the Cowboys, and he was just a good dude, and I wish you nothing but success.
Man, thank you, brother. That means as much as anything, man. The only thing I could just ask for is a few prayers, and I'll get myself there, man. That's a promise.
All right, no worries, man. Look forward to seeing you hopefully bring home another Super Bowl to the G-Men this year, huh?
Absolutely, man. That's the plan, man. If that ain't the plan, nobody should be there if you ain't thinking for the 5. God for 5. That's the new logo. and embrace the grind. No, just 2 new phrases for the Giants is drop the 5 and embrace the grind.
Now, before you go, Carlos, I do have to ask. When rookie camp came around and, you were getting ready and everything like that, were you nervous? And you can be honest.
No. Nope. Not at all. It was not one chance. I'm sorry, and I wish I was nervous, but I wasn't. It was too, like I said, I would rather die on that field than lose that opportunity. It was just something that, it's a good stress. It's like, and it sounds weird, it sounds like an oxymoron, but there's no better stress than having a job and fighting for a job and being in the mix. It's just like, it's the best, worst thing you could be in. And that's just it. And like I said, man, I'll die trying on the field. It wouldn't be nothing left in me. If I don't make it, just know that I'm not alive, because it'll be nothing left in me on that field if I don't make it.
All right. Hey, let me ask you this about the Giants' chances, because the Giants actually made a couple moves no one's talking about. Obviously, with the fact Victor Cruz is back, they also added Shane Vereen from the Patriots. I personally feel that he's going to be a sleeper, and he's going to give Eli Manning that extra dimension of a pass-catching back, similar to Ahmad Bradshaw. What are your thoughts on that?
You talking about Shane Vereen?
Yeah, Shane Vereen.
I think he's a great player, and I think between all of our backs is that versatility and the depth is going to cause definitely problems. It's definitely going to cause problems.
Now, last question before we let you go, because we know you're still getting ready. You got busy schedules and stuff like that. But take me through minicamp. You got 3 days. Right now JPP, he's not at minicamp, so you're probably gonna have to play his position, because throughout your college career you had you went through 2 different coordinators. You pretty much played anywhere from a 0 through a 9 technique. Take me through minicamp. What was it like? Getting drilled with under the watchful eye of one of the most demanding head coaches in the NFL, and Tom Coughlin.
I mean, it's an all day thing. I mean, you usually wake up 6 in the morning, usually out of there by 8 at night. It's long hours, but like I said, it's a happy long time to work. And my main thing, especially on the defense, with Coach Baggs behind us, is to be better today than you were yesterday. And that's kind of the mindset I had. I mean, I wish I had the opportunity to really be nervous or be concerned about what's going on and how long practice is. But my main thing was just to prove to these guys, with the little opportunity I had, that I could be a better player and get better, and my ability to learn and my productivity will always increase day upon day. And it was a learning process, but it was a good thing, because you're able to get your feet wet and at the same time learn from the vets and learn the playbook. And it was just like an extra push, and it gives you a sense of what training camp is like. I mean, regardless of the pads and the heat conditions, but it gave me that push you need. And I felt like it was much needed, because now I kind of have an idea of what I'm getting myself into starting July.
Well, Carlos, I wish you nothing but the best. I have no doubt that we'll be seeing number 97 on the sidelines during football season, and I wish you, good health and have an amazing rookie season. I do not see any reason why we won't see you on here in the New York, New Jersey area, either CBS or Fox. On Sundays and stuff, getting your name called by either Joe Buck or whoever is covering Giant games for any of the stations and everything like that. So why don't you let the good people know where they can find you on social media, and any last words before you go?
Yeah, man, I just want to say thank you guys for the show, man. It's always a good time. Appreciate you, brothers. Please keep in touch. Hopefully we can have more in the future. And social media, my Facebook is my name, Carleif Taylor. Same as my Instagram. It's just an underscore before Carleif. And my Twitter is Carleif Taylor 97. And Carleif is CARLIF. Taylor is TAYLOR.
Make sure, ladies and gentlemen, you learn that name. You're going to be hearing it a lot on Sundays. Thank you very much, Carleif. Have a great night, and good luck to you.
Hey,
Anytime, brother.
Good luck.
Thank you.
That was Carleif Taylor, number 97 on the New York Giants, getting ready for his rookie season in the National Football League. Great story. Kid, I see a lot of good things happening for this kid, Rob.
Yeah, I agree. I actually just sent him a friend request on Facebook when he was telling us about where to find him on social media. And it's nice hearing stories about players from small schools making it to the league. Like I said, that's one of the reasons why I'm a fan of Miles Austin, and also why I think Taylor Gabriel from my Browns is going to have a big year this year.
Yeah, and you mentioned a lot of, a bunch of players that came from small schools that had, some amazing, careers and stuff like that. There was one guy that had a halfway decent career, came out of Jackson State University, nothing really special. Guy by the name, I think it's Rice. Jerry Rice. That's it, Jerry Rice. Pretty good wide receiver from a small school.
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah. It's not about the school you come from, it's about the talent you bring into the field and stuff. And I think the players that come from small schools, technically Julio Edelman comes from a small school, Kent State, if you want to look at it that way. And, there's a lot of good players. It's just that you just got to know where to find them, how to develop them, put them in the right system, and so forth.
Yeah, and the best thing is it's all for small schools though. Their systems are a little bit more. Their systems could be a little bit more simple, but I know for a fact, an example of a small school that churned out pretty decent players is the University of Delaware. That offense, that offense. It's not for the offense is not for the faint of heart. There's some formations there that that you sit there and you scratch your head like, how do you defend something like this? And by the way, their quarterback is now a Super Bowl champion and is $20 million a year in Joe Flacco. So there's another small school for you to throw out there, ladies and gentlemen.
Also, Rich Gannon came from there too, and he's only a NFL MVP, led the Raiders to a Super Bowl. Granted, they lost, but it's amazing. Good players like that get overlooked because they go to smaller schools, and yet you got Ben Roethlisberger from Miami of Ohio. You got Byron Leftwich just a few years ago. Heck, you got Randy Moss from Marshall, technically a small school, and it's just like it makes no difference what school you go to as long as you can perform and produce on the field.
Exactly. You're exactly right. And, I think the stigma is just that, if you don't go to a Division I school and if you are not out there being harped on as the next big thing, from agents and and public relations from colleges and stuff like that, it's really a grind. But scouting to me is key. And if a certain scout finds you and he's got a very good reputation within the organization, then I have no doubt whatsoever that a small school guy will get his just due so he can go and make his dream come true playing in the NFL. Because remember, you have hundreds of thousands of people have aspirations to play in the NFL, in which you have 32 teams at 53 players per team. if you have from 100,000 in high school to 1,600 players that have the honor to play in the NFL, that's whittling down a lot of people. So kudos to Carlos Taylor for his journey, and I wish him nothing but the best with the New York Giants.
Same.
We're about ready now to go into the second hour, ladies and gentlemen, here in the Mad Scientist Sports Lab. My name is Nick Ficarelli. I am the Mad Scientist of Sports, and with me tonight as my special guest apprentice is none other than the head of the Inscriber Mag, Robert D. Cobb, joining me this evening. We're going to kick off now with the second half of the show. Ladies and gentlemen, this guy is one hell of a radio host. The host of the Broad Street Line, and he's affectionately known as the Mayor because if you listen to his opinions, you have nothing but due respect for him. And very glad to have him on the show. We're going to be talking a little NBA, a little MLB, because he's a renaissance man when it comes to sports. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce everybody to Christopher Dinkins. Chris, how you doing tonight?
What's going on, Pete? Thanks, Nick, for having me on the show, man. I appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. Any friend of Devin's and B. Austin's is a friend of mine, of course, being part of the War Room family. And first thing I wanted to touch base with you tonight is Alex Rodriguez. Got his 3,000th hit earlier this week. Of course, the 3,000th hit getting a home run. And what struck me odd is the standing ovation that he got from Yankee fans who a few months ago were ready to ship him out to anywhere except New York. And it got me wondering, has forgiveness set in with Yankee fans and baseball fans across America with them, or is it just like, he's not going away, might as well cheer for him. He's still a member of our team, but you can still hear the empathy from certain players and people and media when it comes to A-Rod.
You know what? First and foremost, man, I'm a Yankee fan. I might sound a little biased or whatever, but I think I'm coming from a perspective that kind of looks at it as, yeah, he's a Yankee. So first and foremost, we didn't like it. Well, I didn't like it personally. I'm just going to speak for myself. I didn't like it personally that, he was going through all his trials and tribulations, lying and all of that stuff like that. But, hey, he was on the Yankees, so we had to deal with it, right? So right now, as it stands right now, man, look, he's helping the team out, all that notwithstanding, man. I mean, nobody's going to forget about it when he goes on the road, which is fine. But he's a Yankee, man, and we got his back. And that's all I'm going to say about that, man. I believe that he was wrong. He knows he was wrong. But, hey, he's still doing what he got to do. Now, as far as the Yankees having to pay him the money for those the bonuses for, say, his 3,000 hit that he just got, and the home runs, 600 home runs, I mean, that's a situation that the Yankees have to deal with because they signed on for that because they knew that he was going to get those milestones being a Yankee, but didn't realize probably that what was going to come with that, the extra baggage. So, again, they have to deal with it. And as a Yankee fan, we have to, we like it. But when he goes on the road, it's a different story. We don't care about that. We don't care about what he does on the road because we know that the fans are going to tear him up. That's what they're going to do. But he's a Yankee, and he's hitting. Hey, yo, Nick, he's hitting, man. He's doing his numbers, man. So he's contributing. So we don't have no problems with him.
Well, if I may chime in real quick and say this, is that anytime you put on that pinstripe uniform and when you go on the road and you have New York across your chest, and you're not the Mets, obviously, but it's like you have that New York across the chest and that gray uniform, you are the most hated sports franchise perhaps of all time, period. It's like when the Indians and Yankees play here in Cleveland, believe me, automatically, regardless, and Yankees fans travel extremely well. I mean, A-Rod.
And we just, we just lost Rob, ladies and gentlemen, just to let you know, technical difficulties on his end. But he is true. Chris, when he says that, you know, you wear the New York Yankee uniform when you're on the road, 31 out of 32 places, you are not going to be the most loved franchise on the planet. But I will say this, you know, I'm a Met fan, and, you know, yes,
okay.
and I wear those colors, you know, very, very well. But when you have the success of a franchise as the Yankees have had since 1994, you know, a lot of people seem to forget that in the strike-shortened year in 94, the Yankees had the best record in the American League, and it was Buck Showalter who started the march that led the way for Joe Torre in 96. Someone doesn't get his just due enough. Just throwing that out there for everybody.
All right, you know what? Yeah, hold on. I'm gonna say to that, Buck Showalter was sitting on the bench when we lost to Seattle in '95, and that was it for him.
I know.
So
But here's the funny thing, though. Buck Showalter, who molded that dugout to where Joe Torre refined it. Buck Showalter, well, this is getting off tangent a little bit, but Buck Showalter doesn't get enough credit as a manager like he does. This is a guy that came into a really bad, and I mean bad situation in '93 with the New York Yankees. And and what happened is that, you know, he molded that team to the point that, you know, they became as competitive as they were. And then, he was the first manager who helped build the Diamondbacks franchise and led that team in his third year to an NL West championship. Then, of course, the bottom fell out the following year and he got fired. You know, and now he's in Baltimore, and Baltimore has done a complete 180. And last year, you know, his team has made the playoffs the last couple of years. They've won the division, and you just have to wonder when Buck Showalter will get his just due as being one of the better managers in Major League Baseball. I mean, it's just mind-boggling to me how he doesn't get that much due respect. But I think he's starting to get it now, although, again, like I said, I think it's slightly overdue. But, you know, going back to the Yankees, you know, you had Buck Showalter who built them, Joe Torre refined them, and kept them as a juggernaut all throughout his career. Then you have Girardi comes in. You know, he wins the championship in 2000. You know, he wins the championship in 2009. And let me tell you something. If you had the amount of injuries that the Yankees have had the last few years, and the type of, rosters that you have, because your general manager pretty much has neglected the minor league system, and yet still have your team competing for a playoff spot down to the bitter end of the season. And you got to give your just due respect to Joe Girardi that he's done. And I've seen Yankee fans bust on Girardi beyond unbelievable what they say about him, in which I sit back and I just shake my head and I go, dude, when you have to throw out guys like Sean Green and David Phelps and I can't even think of a couple of other names that can't come to mind. Every fifth day when you have Pineda going down, Tanaka going down, you had Nova going down, you had Teixeira going down, you had Jeter on his last legs, you know, you had... I mean, good Lord, man.
Yeah. I mean, again, man, being a Yankee fan, so I could definitely answer those questions and talk to that. And, man, we got on Buck. We got on Joe. We got on Joe. We get on Joe Girardi. I mean, this is what it is, man. But, again, man, we still going to, be there for them, And, winning and competing kind of like, smooths over a lot of problems. As long as we're competing, you know, it is what it is. Again, our minor league system is not what it was. You know what I mean? And we made some moves that we wish we could have back. But, again, like you said, we're always competing. We're there. We're in the building, man, all the time. But we just got to give it to just being able to, you know, have consistency with the veterans. And even though some people have off seasons, we still, you know, find a way. Like last year with the pitching. Nobody thought we was going to get pitching like that after CC went down and Tanaka went down. We still, you know, kept our heads above water. So that's what we do. Shout out to the Mets.
Yeah, well, what do you call it? When you have the crap luck that we've had in the last God knows how long? You know, I'm used to playing little brother type of deal.
Nick, you're gonna be all right. You're gonna be all right. You're gonna be all right. The Mets are gonna be okay, man. I think so.
We are going to be okay, and the reason why is because I look at what we have right now. I look at what the Mets have right now, and I'm trying to keep my bias to the side because when you're a radio show host, you have to learn to like temper things down a little bit. But you know, the funny thing is, you know, we got Matt Harvey. Next year, we're going to have Zach Wheeler. We have Jacob deGrom. We have Noah Syndergaard. We have a front four on the rotation that will be absolutely amazing. The one thing that stinks, though, is that we have John Meese, a left-hander, who some days looks like a world beater, and other days just looks like an ordinary fifth-day guy that'll just grind you to get you some innings and stuff like that. I mean, but fear not, ladies and gentlemen, because we got Steven Matz coming up from the minor leagues who might be that lefty that we've been looking for since, I don't know, Sid Fernandez, Bob Ojeda, and a couple of other guys from the 1980s that we haven't really, Frank Viola, Al Leiter, you know, those type of guys. So, you know, I'm really looking forward to seeing that. I mean, our back end of the back end of the bullpen, Familia has been a pleasant surprise. If Parnell's arm strength comes back, you know, obviously we'll be very happy with him being a setup guy. You know, we have a couple of guys that went on the DL that are going to be good for the back end of the bullpen as well. And you know, where I see fault though is hitting. I can't stress this enough. I mean, earlier this week, you know, the Mets lost someone dear to their family in Nelson Doubleday, the guy that really saved the New York Mets from franchise ruin. And, you know, he was a guy that was willing to spend the money when needed to bring in the players to play, you know, here in the big city. And when he lost the team to the Wilpons, it was a very, very sad day for Mets fans and for baseball, because for me, Doubleday was that guy that would bend over backwards to make sure that the franchise and the fans were, kept happy. Not like what we're going through right now with the Wilpons and Sandy Alderson and making the Mets look like, and I'm being very honest, making them look like, a middle of the road, small market team in which right now we have, like, salary-wise, where I think 16th or 17th. And you're playing in the greatest market in the world in New York City. You built Ebbets Field Jr. in Citi Field, and you have a fan base that wants to care. And right. But if you don't want to spend the money, I mean, when you go into an off season and your big signing Michael Kadire and John Mayberry, and you're like, well, you go, well, Matt Harvey's coming back, so that's almost like a big signing. And well, we have a team that we feel that is going to be very competitive. And as a fan, you've got to sit back and say, yeah, but if you have the money to spend, there are guys out there that could help us. That can help us now and in the future. Why not go out and do it? But I don't know. I mean, it's something that we've been harping on for years. It's something that we've been, as Met fans, and like I said, I really try not to play homer when hosting a show or stuff like that. But it seems like we'll be fine. It seems like the Mets will be fine. We just don't know. Under the stewardship of Sandy Alderson, if the necessary parts from here and beyond will be brought in to take us to the next level.
Let me ask you a question, Nick. Do you think the Mets are one of the top 5 teams in the National League?
And I'm going to be bluntly honest with you and say, no, they're not. As long as you have the San Francisco Giants, 3 world championships in the last 6 years, the juggernaut known as the Los Angeles Dodgers that can spend money until they're blue in the face and still make a profit, and the best players known to man. The St. Louis Cardinals, who have been the upper echelon of the National League, the Houston Astros FBI investigation, be damned. The Pittsburgh Pirates, who only a few short years ago were one of the laughingstocks of Major League Baseball and have been built the right way, one of the youngest teams in Major League Baseball, and continuously going on their winning ways. And, of course, our nemesis right now, the Washington Nationals, and after today with Max Scherzer and the $220 million contract, throwing a no-hitter, should have had a perfect game. Somehow, he got squeezed on that, but still, a no-hitter is a no-hitter in Major League Baseball. As long as they have the franchise that they have and the money that they're willing to spend, the Mets right now cannot crack the top 5. I'm sorry, it's just not going to happen. I mean, there's got to be a lot of extenuating circumstances for such things to happen in Major League Baseball. Do I think they're in the upper half of the National League? Yes, that I do.
Okay.
Top 5 in the National League, not by the sheer length of whatever. I mean, I'm sorry, but just not.
You know what? You talked about San Francisco. They finally just, turning around, still at 17 and 18 at home. You talk about the Dodgers for all their, perceived postseason success with their heavy payroll. Clayton Kershaw can't get it done in the postseason. We talk about the Pirates. They're stuck in the wild card game. St. Louis Cardinals have been the class of the National League for a couple of years, doing their numbers. Washington Nationals, we know about them. Is Matt Williams going to get it right when they make the playoffs? Is Bryce Harper going to come around in playoff season? The Mets right now, man, I just think that even though 4-game losing streak be damned, I just think that right now they always go through ups and downs, peaks and valleys. They might not be there at the end, but I think that they deserve to get a little bit more credit than what you're giving them. As a Mets fan, I like Wilber Flores, what he's doing. Bartolo Colon is smacking the horse hide off the ball. I'm just being facetious right now, but I think the Mets, 36 and 34, I mean, you can't really ask for too much more than that. You know what I mean? A half game out of first place? Come on now, you should be all right. You know what I mean? So, again, man, like I said, we're not going to stay on it too long, but I just think that the Mets, they're not top 5 like you said, but they're hovering around that spot, though. It's not 6, 7 clubs in the National League better than the Mets.
Yeah, but you got to understand one thing, though, and Rob's from Cleveland, and he, hasn't seen a championship since, I think, 1920 or whatever it may be, but, sorry, Rob, I had to go there. But,
It's all right.
You know, you look at the way though that these teams have been built. They either been built from the ground up, a la the Pittsburgh Pirates. They're built on pitching and defense, in which something's got to be done right because you win 3 world championships in 6 years in San Francisco. And by the way, I will continue to say this: the legend of Mad Bum will continue to grow every single year after that performance in the postseason last year. As long as the Dodgers don't claim bankruptcy in the next few years, they're going to be willing to do whatever it takes to bring a championship back to LA. And one day, Clayton Kershaw, who everybody seems to forget is only 24 years old, will figure it out and win a postseason game. The St. Louis Cardinals, they are probably the most well-run franchise in Major League Baseball. I mean, yeah, I know. They got caught with the espionage and stuff like that.
Right.
You know, they got caught with espionage and stuff like that. Totally understand. There has been little to no uproar about it because we all know that something's going to happen in Major League Baseball. What's the worst that they're going to happen? Obviously, there's not going to be a postseason ban. Obviously, they're not going to be saying forfeit games. They're probably going to lose draft picks, be fined money, and someone's getting suspended, who it may be, who knows. But, you know, you're talking about a team that, is second only to the New York Yankees in world championships, and they always seem to be at or near the top of their game year in, year out. And Washington is one of those nouveau riche teams that we know about. They'll pay their players. You got one of the best young players of the game who finally figured it out this year in Bryce Harper. You know, you got a pitching staff that runs 7 freaking deep, in which their best pitcher last year, Taylor Rourke, ended up in the bullpen because they couldn't find a spot for him in the postseason rotation, which still boggles my mind because it's going to happen again this year. When you have Jordan Zimmerman, Max Scherzer, Steven Strasburg, Gio Gonzalez, Taylor Rourke, Doug Fister. I mean, you just sit there at the embarrassment of riches that they have in the rotation, and you just wonder how Washington cannot get out of their way in the playoffs. I have a funny feeling that this is the year that they get out of their own way, and this is the year that they're going to do some major damage. So to me, it will always be an uphill climb in the National League until we reach that type of level. I look at you also have to look at what's going on with the other teams. You have to look at the Chicago Cubs. Theo Epstein has pretty much tanked, the last couple of years, but now has rebuilt, and I mean rebuilt the franchise to the point that he was able to bring in John Lester to be the front of the rotation. He brought up Chris Bryant, and my God, the kid is going to be an absolute stud. Castro, you have Starlin Castro, who's finally figured it out. You got Anthony Rizzo, who's finally figured it out. You got all these guys, these young studs that are starting to figure it out with a rotation that is actually pretty dang good. You got the Atlanta Braves. They tore their stuff down because they knew something had to be changed, and they're rebuilding on the fly, and they're doing a really good job at it. You got the San Diego Padres, the gang that, as of right now, that a gang that can't shoot straight. But you got to give this team time to gel. It wasn't going to happen overnight, and I think they really, really, really made the wrong move in firing Bud Black, because I think Black is a really good coach, and I think he will get picked up in the not too distant future. And then, of course, you got you got Cincinnati. They're going to be sellers, but they still have some good players on that team. Milwaukee, well, I don't know about Milwaukee anymore, but but let's just put it like, seriously, put it like this, guys. And Rob, I'm gonna kick it to you. as far as I can see, they're, Major League Baseball teams, I think, have finally learned what it's going to take to win in Major League Baseball, whether it's by small ball or whether it's by pitching and defense. So I want to get your thoughts on that.
My thoughts are this, is that I think more teams are now going to adapt the small ball approach and more about pitching and defense, because look at the Kansas City Royals. Like, they came out of nowhere last year to practically take the Giants to like 6 games in the World Series last year. And on top of that, remember when Seattle with Ichiro rang up 110 some odd wins a few years back? They played small ball. You had Ichiro at the top of the lineup, getting those infield / singles or whatever. I think nowadays teams are they're still going to need your power every now and then. But as someone that played baseball in high school, I say this: average will always beat power, in my opinion, because average will get you further in terms of like getting hits, because those hits add up over time. Whereas a home run, you'll get a big, huge home run, but you got to keep that constant pressure on the opposing pitcher and defense to get those hits and stuff. And I think more teams are going to be shifting more towards small ball. On top of which, you brought up an excellent point about the Pittsburgh Pirates. Let me tell you this. I lived in Pittsburgh for roughly over 10 years, and I was there when they drafted Andrew McCutchen, when they built through the farm system. Like, the Pirates were a joke practically. Like, they were giving away tickets for people to come to PNC Park, the best and most beautiful ballpark in baseball. I'm sorry. And it's just like now to see where they're at now, what they're doing, it's a testament of how you build it the right way. You build it through the farm system. You develop your players, and now look, the Pirates, they are a perennial wild card team. Unfortunately, they play in the same division as the best run team in baseball, unless they're hacking your system, in the St. Louis Cardinals. But beyond that, they play a version of small ball too. Like, they'll get their hits and stuff every now and then. But I tell you this, Andrew McCutchen, he's going to win himself a couple more MVPs one day. I'm telling you.
You're exactly right on that. Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, no doubt, man. The Royals took the Giants. It was 7 games in the World Series, man. And, again, small ball, it is what it is. And like you said, I definitely agree with you. You can, small ball your way to a couple men on base, and then, boom, here comes some power. That's 3 runs for you. You know what I mean? So if you have the pitching, if you have the type of pitching that can, put 3 runs, you know what I mean? Clayton Kershaw type dude, a Bumgarner type guy. You know what I mean? If you have the type of pitch, then that'll work for you. But, I like the long ball too. Give me some home runs. Put some pressure on the pitchers that make the pitchers have to make pitches to my squad, because I'm going to come up there looking to hit the ball, and you're going to have to pitch to me. So, again, small ball, speed, it kills. Like you said, it showed last year in the World Series. But also it kind of can hinder you. You know what I mean? You can run yourself out of innings. But again, man, going back to small ball, it seems to be working. That seems to be the wave that everybody's riding right now.
I look back to the my Indians did in the 90s with Lofton, Baerga, Omar Vizquel, then Robbie Alomar. You had those 3 in the top lineup. You had Albert Bell. You had Sandy Alomar. You had Paul Sorrento. You had those power guys. Like, they played a combination of small ball and long ball.
Can we not talk about that, please? Because I still see the bugs coming out of Jabba Chamberlain's mouth. Can we not bring back bad
memories?
Those
memories, man. That was those midges, as we call them here.
Yeah, man. Man, listen, man. Joe Torre should have took them off the field, but we're not going to harp on that. But go ahead, man. Finish your thought. Messing with you.
I know, it's all good. It's all good.
Well, Chris, I say, man, it was absolutely awesome having you on the show tonight. I got to tell you, you bring a lot of fire to the conversation, and, it's a lot of fun. And You got me pontificating about my Mets, and what do you call that? Thank you so much for allowing me to do that, to get a lot of stuff off and everything like that. Why don't you let the good people know about your radio show and tell them where they can find you on Twitter, and we'll go from there.
Okay, that's what it is, man. Appreciate you, man. Listen, I'm the mayor in the building, man. Tuesday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. After Further Review 2.0. Sometimes we like to call it the Sideline Pass. Live and direct on the Wacko Bob Network. 646-478-5337 is the number to call. And we have some fun with it, and please bring your A game. And I'm expecting my man Nick to come through sometime in the near future so we can chop it up. And man, once again, man, it was dope. You know, your show, man. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Happy Father's Day to you, Nick. Happy Father's Day to you, my man. And do your thing, man. I'm definitely gonna stay tuned. Shout out to my man Dad for War Room Sports. Thanks for the hookup, and I'll talk to you soon, man. Appreciate you.
Hey,
Absolutely. Have a good one.
Too.
And that was Christopher Dinkins, otherwise known as the Mayor. And as you heard, what do you call his show After Further Review 2.0? Good stuff, and I definitely will be chopping it up with him in the not-too-distant future. We're waiting for our final guest to be on tonight, and what do you call, hopefully, you know, after, you know, his performance at AAW tonight that, you know, he'll be able to come on. I will totally understand if he doesn't. We're waiting for the walking weapon, as he's called in pro wrestling, Josh Alexander. Hopefully he'll be on very, very soon. Just to let everybody know about Josh Alexander, you know, and his career. Josh has been wrestling for, I believe, 10 years. And the amazing thing is that, you know, not many people like know his, know his story. Josh, you know, was when he was growing up, he was a pudgy kid. He was shy, and you know, he was bullied. And you know, when you grow up like that, you know, you become shy, you become introverted, and everything like that. And that's exactly what happened to him. And the funny thing is that how do I go about not many people knew about his work. And you know, about a couple of years ago, he got his major break with an organization called Ring of Honor.
Okay.
And him, his tag team partner, Ethan Page, otherwise known as All Eagle, came together and they were called the Monster Mafia. And, you know, they have been one of the most successful tag teams on the independent scene for quite some time. You've seen them together in AAW, which is based out of Cleveland, Ohio, and in Chicago, Illinois, AIW Wrestling, Ring of Honor Wrestling, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla out of Reseda, up in Canada with Smash World Wrestling and Alpha One Wrestling. And they have been taking names and kicking ass for quite some time. And about a year ago, what happened is that actually 2 years ago, he suffered a neck injury. He had lost strength and he had pain in his spine for 6 months. He, took some time off. He went through the Ring of Honor tryout camp. He had some amazing matches with Michael Logan, the tag team matches with Red Dragon, Kyle O'Reilly, and Bobby Fish. And in September of that year, he had his C5, C6 vertebrae fused together. And, he hid his injury. He kept wrestling. And his name kept growing. His stature kept growing. And, he had amazing matches all across the United States and all across, Canada with independent wrestlers like Tim Donst, Ricochet, the Young Bucks, Nick Jackson, Matt Sydal, Ricky Shane Page. I mean, all of these guys that are names on the independent circuit.
Okay.
About 4 months ago, he was in a tag team match at PWG, and with Ethan Page, it was Monster Mafia versus Chris Sabin and Matt Sydal. And there's a specific move that Matt Sydal and Chris Sabin do that's called a Powerbomb Meteora. Basically, if you follow wrestling, you know what Powerbomb is. Or Meteora is coming off the top rope with both knees, landing both knees on the shoulders and driving your opponent into the mat. Now, you could rehearse this until you're blue in the face. And people scream wrestling's fake and stuff like that, but let me tell you something. If you watch the DVD, and I have, Josh Alexander fell, took the move, but came down wrong. And what happened is that it was poor timing.
Oh, wow.
He came crashing down on his head, and, what everybody thought was that he dodged a bullet.
Mm-hmm.
He went home that night to his family. He's married. He has a newborn son. He woke up the next morning and he said that he had extreme pain in his left arm and a complete loss of strength. Now, what ended up happening was that he continued to wrestle, but he had to get checked out. And he got the call from his doctors on June 3rd at 11 a.m. and found out that he's going to have the same surgery again.
Oh, wow.
But this time they're going to be fusing a lot more vertebrae together. And the doctors have pretty much told Josh that he can't wrestle anymore. He's done. And here's a young guy trying to make it big on the independent scene to get to the big leagues, obviously being the WWE, but his career has now been tragically cut short. And although, unfortunately, he will not be joining us tonight, I'm going to read his blog post to everybody.
Okay.
I promised that if he wasn't going to be able to make it, that I'll read his blog post. This way, everybody understands what's going on. So for the remainder of the show, it'll be Josh Alexander's blog about walking away from wrestling, and just hope everybody takes a good listen to it. The blog was posted on June 15th, 2015. It's called Walking Weapon Walks Away. For the better part of 10 years, I've been stuck on autopilot. I've been doing what I love, seemingly out of habit. In my life, I've sacrificed everything most people wouldn't, all to live my dream. The dream of being somebody, anybody noticeable. This is a tough subject for me. Nonetheless, here I go. As of 11 a.m. on June the 3rd, 2015, my life was forever changed. I got some news. News I'd hoped I'd have been prepared for, news I tried to prepare for. However, as it was evident by my state that morning, I failed miserably. Life before wrestling was bleak. I had very few people I could call friends. I was doing what I thought was right for my future, but hated every second of it. As a fat kid who never particularly excelled at anything, I was depressed. I grew up alone, which would explain why I'm socially inept, in case any of you wondered. I had always suffered from a great deal of depression. Then wrestling came along. I'd found something that I could excel at, and it felt so damn good to be good at something. The admiration I received from my peers and fans validated me as an individual. I had made friends with people who had common interests and established lifelong friendships. For the first time in my life, I had found some semblance of peace. In wrestling, I was the elite. People saw me for what felt like the first time. I wasn't invisible anymore. I stood out from the pack. I had found something to mold me as an individual, to make me feel like I had some value. Wrestling taught me that life was even worth living. Sadly, something I questioned on a few occasions in my life. For that, I am forever grateful to the business. So here's the story. 2 years ago at AAW, I suffered a neck injury. I lost some strength and I had radiating pain in my spine for 6 months. I took time off and moved to Alberta as a way to get away and hopefully heal my body. It was a successful move, and the itch to come back to professional wrestling crept back until it was killing me. I was determined. I had unfinished business. I wanted a contract, something to validate the 8 years of sacrifice I had made up until that point. Ring of Honor was in my sights, and most importantly, I felt it was within my reach. Within a few months of returning, I did an ROH tryout camp. As someone who had already wrestled for ROH and has seemingly impressed the office, I was honestly annoyed by the formality I had to go to do a camp to be considered. It was a good experience, yet also a flat-out cash grab and a crap load of money, especially for a struggling indie wrestler. However, it paid off in the form of another match versus Red Dragon. The match was nearly flawless. The Dearborn crowd made me the most over guy on the show due to my headgear. Ethan Page and I swung for the fences, and with the help from two of the best, we hit a home run. It was one of the proudest moments of my career. We stole the damn show. However, what some people don't know is that when I took a tornado DDT from Kyle O'Reilly, I felt a crunch in my neck. It wasn't soon after that I would lose all strength in my right arm. I took a few weeks off, hardly able to sleep, and in some of the worst pain I've ever endured in my life. I got an MRI and sought out a neurologist for help. He told me I compressed, herniated my disc. It would require surgery. So at the end of September, I went in and secretly had my C5, C6 vertebrae fused. For anyone who's observant, yes, I kept wrestling during that time. I hid my injury from everyone. Ethan Page knew a little bit about my circumstances, but I couldn't even disclose the full severity of my injury to him. I knew he loved me like a brother and would let me wrestle if he knew the risk involved. I refused to miss out on my opportunity with ROH, and I had some great matches during that time regardless of my injury. Tim Donst and myself had a few good ones in AIW, and Monster Mafia hit another home run in Toronto at All-Star Extravaganza. My first match back was against Roderick Strong and Jimmy Jacobs in ROH in Chicago. I wish I had been healthier for this one. I have an amazing amount of respect for and admiration for the machine that is Roddy Strong, and I was devastated I couldn't give him Josh Alexander at his best. All this time, he probably just thought I sucked. The truth is, I was just 2 weeks removed from busting my neck. Oh, well, that's life. So I had the surgery. During that time, Monster Mafia turned down an ROH booking. Honestly, part of it was out of frustration of the lack of interest in us, even though we were always delivering for them, but mostly it was because I would have been 2 weeks removed from neck surgery, something I obviously didn't tell them about. However, the clock was ticking. I had to get back. If ROH didn't want me, we still had to make it to PWG. I could not let my partner down. Tag bookings don't just turn into single bookings if one guy is out. Even though I was told never to wrestle again, and only 5 weeks post-surgery, which was far too early, I came back for Alpha One versus Ricochet. I powered on through the pain and aggravation, all for this one goal. Then, in February of 2015, the Monster Mafia debuted in PWG. It finally happened. We also got to do it versus two of my favorite opponents and human beings, the Young Bucks. It was honestly a dream come true. The memories of making it from some crappy warehouse show in Hamilton, sorry Greg, to Juziak, to California with my best friend in front of the hottest crowd in all of wrestling was surreal. Soon after, we returned to the next show to face Love Gun. It was in this match where my career took a turn. My neck was finally feeling all right. I was getting back in shape. The strength of my right arm had almost completely returned. But towards the end of the match, just like the last time, Sabin hosted me up for a powerbomb, and Seidel hit me with double knees. What happened next was no one's fault, just poor timing. This could have happened to anyone. It's just the way wrestling is. Every single thing is a risk. As I was taking the move, I came crashing down on my head to the gasp of everyone in the audience as well as Love Gun and finished up the match. I honestly thought I dodged a bullet. When I returned home, I woke up one morning to extreme pain now in my left arm as well as a complete loss of strength. I was devastated to say the least. Not again. This could not be happening. My luck. My tag team partner is obsessed with fate. It's a common topic of discussion in the car. I've asked myself countless times if it was my destiny to end up like this. If I had never moved to Calgary and in effect abandoned my best friend when he needed me most, I would likely have been so reckless with my body I just wanted to make up for the lost time and mend that broken relationship. Also, I originally hurt my neck on a top rope reverse Rana, a risk I only took because I thought we'd never get across the border again and wanted to make every moment noticeable. Surely ROH would want to give me a contract if I was leaving a lasting impression and getting buzz. Yeah, I'm dumb. The match that night versus Red Dragon, the finish originally wasn't even supposed to be on me. Once more, PWG, I had to state my case to convince Sabin that he could hoist me up for a powerbomb even to even execute the maneuver. All these things were almost avoided. So was it my fate? No, it's just the risk that all wrestlers take. If I didn't happen to be on one of those things, it would certainly have been something else. My neck is just bad. It's weak. Wrestling for 10 years, leaving it all in the ring, whether there are 10 or 1,000 fans, has finally caught up to me. After the match with Love Gun, I told Ethan Page I'd get us through DDT. That was a dream. We were a tag team first and foremost. It's the one thing that kept me loving wrestling this long. I achieved the unthinkable. We won the PWG Tag Team titles at DDT. I not only won the titles, but I did it with my best friend, even if it was short-lived. In the week leading up to DDT, I finally got the MRI I was waiting for. The morning of June 3rd, I got the results. Safe to say I had to sit down when I got the news. I was pretty much have either a bulging or herniated disc at every level in my neck. I also have an impingement so severe that my left arm has now completely atrophied. My neurosurgeon told me surgery was my only option. They have to do another 2-level infusion. It's the only way to relieve the constant pain and hold any more extreme symptoms. So July 23rd, 2015, I'm set to have my second neck surgery in less than a year. To quote one of my favorite movies, wow, this is heavy, Doc. Now, I don't want to be bitter and talk all about the bad. Don't get me wrong, this is certainly bad. But for whatever, if it is the last anyone hears from me, they'll hear the truth. The truth is, I'm not a bitter guy. For the last year, I haven't felt worthy of stepping foot in the ring. I felt like a fraud calling myself a professional wrestler, regardless of the fact that I feel I had the most success in my career this year. I've also had the worst injuries. My neck has kept me from being able to train and get in shape. As a child, I was obese and was ridiculed daily. So being in shape goes a long way for my confidence. It's been a rough year physically and emotionally. Wrestling is all I ever felt born to do, something I was naturally very good at. When I was confident and at my best, I don't think there was anybody better than me. Looking up anything from the fall of 2013, that was my prime. I guess I'll always be just a little upset I didn't get to show the world. I sit here and hope people don't take all this the wrong way. I don't want my legacy to be that of a reckless wrestler. Did I take unnecessary risks? Sure. Did I get my pride in the way? Certainly. I've been so tough these past couple of years that I'm stupid. I was taxing my body, taking years off my life, and risking it all. All of it for a chance to be recognized as one of the best. If this is it, I suppose I fell short on that goal. The shelf life of a wrestler isn't that long. After a few months, I will be an afterthought to the fans. I'm okay with that because it means they've turned their attention to other guys trying to make their mark. Wrestling is tough. It will break your heart, and smile while doing it if you let it. I never let it get the best of me for too long, but today, with tears in my eyes, I cannot admit I'm scared of a life without it. So that's it. I regret not ever getting that contract. I regret not being able to go out on my own terms. Hell, I even regret that I never got to be on Colt's podcast. Should have kissed him a little bit more ass. Hi, Colt Cabana. But when I think about it, I'm proud of everything I did. I wrestled for 10 years, balls to the wall, gave everything to wrestling, and it gave me so much in return, even if I failed to get that contract. I made it to PWG, made some amazing friends, and made some amazing fans. I traveled North America and made a bit of cash doing it. I appreciate all the boys and girls who I've wrestled and shared locker rooms with. I thank the promotions and fans for giving me a chance to live my dream. Most importantly, I thank Ethan Page for giving me the courage to admit that I was hurt, and in return, check my pride at the door for the benefit of my family. As strong as I may be, the support went a long way from my best friend. I'm not saying I'm quitting or retiring. I hate that. I really have no choice in the matter. Truthfully, I was never supposed to come back after the first surgery, but I risked it all for the chance to finish whatever unfinished business I had. I'm glad I did because I made memories that will last a lifetime. I'm proud to say in my decade of pro wrestling, I never injured one of my opponents, with the exception of Scotty O'Shea's nose on several occasions. I'm proud to know that some will remember me for quite some time, but I'm terrified at the thought of life without wrestling. I don't want to be thought of as a quitter, that I must have never really wanted it that much. For the past decade, it's all I've wanted. Luckily, I found something I love even more than wrestling. I have a beautiful son, a gorgeous girl, amazing friends. I love my family. I will need every single one of them. July 12, 2015, I will be running a show in Hamilton, Ontario. It is under the Alpha One banner, the one promotion that has given and meant so much to me in my career. Any profits from this show will go towards helping me and my family. I'll need it while I'm off recovering from my surgery. A few scenarios of my last show have been considered. Michael Elgin, Psycho Mike, Johnny Devine, or even breakout star Tyler Thomas were all considered for this one last go. I will finish my career the only way I know how, the only way I think it'll feel right, with the same people I started it with. Standing beside my brother, Ethan Page, against two of my favorite and most storied opponents, Scotty O'Shea and Alessandro Del Bruno. The Monster Mafia versus the Gym Rats. I hope to see everyone there as I close out this chapter of my life with everyone who's meant so much to me for the past decade. I am honestly, genuinely excited for the future. For the first time in 10 years, the path I've been walking is changing. The uncertainty is exhilarating. Stay in touch. That, ladies and gentlemen, was the blog post of Josh Alexander, who was supposed to be my guest for this evening, but obviously, due to extenuating circumstances, he wasn't able to join me. He did have a wrestling card tonight with AAW Vanguard. For all those that are wrestling fans, he was the AAW champion going into this fight, but he would end up losing the belt to Ethan Page, his tag team partner. Obviously, it would have to have been planned with his retirement, so this was the perfect way to segue for Ethan Page to now take up the banner and continue the Monster Mafia way for AAW. If Josh listens to this show, and I do believe he will, I will say this. I've been following your career for the last few years. I followed you at AIW, Smash Wrestling, Alpha One, PWG, and ROH. You are one of the best independent wrestlers in the world today. The way that you move in the ring, the power, the speed, the grace, the agility, everything. Everything that you bring to the table is nothing but second to none. Wrestling will be different without you. Wrestling is going to miss you. Wrestling is going to have some big shoes to fill to find out who the next Josh Alexander is on the indie scene. Josh, I wish you nothing but the best. As a wrestling fan and as a wrestling savant, you, sir, are right now, before retirement takes you away from the game, one of the top 10 independent wrestlers that should have gotten a deal with a major organization. It's a shame your career is coming to an end, but your life is still evolving. Take care of yourself, take care of your son, take care of your girl. Everything will be fine. If you ever have the itch to come back to the ring, who knows? You may get lucky. You may be a promoter. You may be a manager. You may have something to do. But I will say this, Josh. You have left an everlasting impression not only to me but to other wrestling fans across North America. I wish you Godspeed, and I do hope that one day the walking weapon will step foot in that ring again after surgery to give his proper goodbyes. My name is Nick Ficarelli. I am the Mad Scientist of Sports. You can listen to me here live every Saturday night, 10 p.m. to midnight, right here on Blog Talk Radio. But this is not the only place you'll be able to find me, because after the show is over, I will be syndicated on many friendly networks across the United States. I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, led by Bobby Galante. War Room Sports, led by Devin McMillan and B. Austin and Jimmy Williams. Happy Hour Network, led by Lee Vowell and Ted Hicks. The Arena Sports Network, led by Snowman in the Morning himself, Brian Snow. Die Hard Sports Radio, led by Steve Iskowitz. Sports for Fans, led by Sean Stewart. Nuts and Bolts Sports, led by Joe Cartwright. Late Night Sports Radio, led by Keith Grieve. And, of course, last but certainly not least, the Asylum Sports Network, led by the Ricks, Flieger and Briggs. I will be back next Saturday night at 10 p.m. I will be bringing in some new experiments, new test subjects, like I always do. And I got to say, I have to thank Robert Cobb for joining me this evening. It was on extremely short notice, and I was like, hey, do you want to co-host? And he said, absolutely. I will definitely love to be the apprentice here in the lab tonight. Rob, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And why don't you let the good people know where they can find you on social media?
Okay, thank you. Where they can find me on social media is on Facebook as my name, Robert D. Cobb, on Twitter at Dogfather_INSC, Irene Nancy Sam Charlie. That's for Inscriber, INSC. And obviously you can find the Inscriber Digital Magazine at the Inscriber Mag on Twitter and on Facebook by the same name, The Inscriber Digital Magazine. And it's been an absolute pleasure, man. I'm glad I was able to help out, especially on short notice. I got no problem doing it again, and, let's do it again. Just let me know.
No problem, Rob. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Hey, man, you too. You take it easy over there, all right?
I shall.
Later.
That was Robert Cobb, my esteemed special guest co-host tonight. But it's time to tone down the beacons. It's time to erase the blackboard and get ready for some new experiments. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for allowing me this evening. I will see you all next Saturday night, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Until then, the lab is effectively closed. Good night, ladies and gentlemen.